Alright, what's up everybody and welcome back to the Alpha Obeisance channel. I apologize for not having posted a video in the past week or two. I've been caught up with a lot of my own projects. As most of you guys know, I've taken on a rather heavy workload and it kind of got away from me. So I'm going to do a little catching up, kind of talk about a few of the things that I have been doing personally, and then I would like to address some major news or big news that has come out this past week in regards to KDE Plasma and their rollover to 6.0. There's probably a lot of confused new users out there that don't understand why it appears that their computer is now broken if they are using a rolling release distribution like Arch-based distros like Garuda and Manjaro and so on and so forth. If you're using KDE Plasma on a rolling distro, you probably have a broken desktop or you're having some trouble. So we're going to address why that is here in a moment. So most of you guys that have seen my videos recently know that I have been trying to establish my own home lab environment by deploying the use of my PowerEdge R730, ESXi 7.0. On that note, yes, I will be addressing the home lab / VMware debacle since Broadcom acquired VMware. I will be switching to Proxmox in the near future, but I have to wait until I can afford to put some new storage into the PowerEdge R730 because I realized that when I had initially set up that server, I didn't know enough about RAID configuring that I just went with RAID 0 to maximize the amount of immediately accessible storage on the server. Unfortunately, I did not realize that in doing so, I essentially eliminated any redundancy of my server. So if I got a storage that, a hard drive that goes bad, I'm not going to be able to just yank that thing out, drop it back in there and call it good. No, whereas I'm configured with RAID 0, it's my understanding that if a storage drive goes bad, I'm pretty much just shit out of luck. So there's no point in me switching to VMware, from VMware 7.0 to Proxmox until I can drop more storage in there to reconfigure my RAID to like RAID 5, where I'm going to lose the amount of accessible storage from. I've got 36 terabytes right now. And if I go from RAID 0 to RAID 5, I'm essentially cutting that storage in half because the rest of that is allocated for redundancy. That is my understanding. If I am wrong, please feel free to correct me. But that's my situation as I know it to be. Once I can drop more storage in and can reconfigure for RAID 5 so that I have redundancy and still have that 36 some terabytes worth of accessible storage, essentially meaning I need to double my storage, my physical storage, then we'll go from there. We will transition from VMware to Proxmox. So look forward to that in the future. Don't know when it'll be. I don't know when I'll be able to afford that additional storage. Moving on, most of you guys know that I've been learning to configure a Nextcloud server, and every single tutorial that I have come across out there regarding this just basically says, hey, download this Nextcloud container and deploy it and call it good. That's fine and dandy if you want to expedite the process, but if you want to learn how these systems actually work, it does you no freaking good to just download a container and deploy it. So I had to embark on the journey of learning to download and configure Nextcloud in unison with PHP, Apache, and MariaDB, as well as Redis for caching. There's a whole bunch of different things that I had to learn to not only install in regards to dependencies, but install them, configure them, and get them all configured in such a way that they work together in unison to have a stable Nextcloud server. Thankfully, I did finally figure that out. I have a stable Nextcloud server manually installed and configured. I do need to put a little more emphasis on optimizing performance because I must have a misunderstanding somewhere along the line, probably within regards to Redis and using it for caching. I'm not quite sure, but despite having seemingly allocated far more resources than a server like this would really need, the server still feels sluggish. The web pages take a while to load, uploads seem to take forever, and I've gone through all of my configurations. I've changed max memory allocations and so on and so forth in hopes to optimize it so that it would be much more efficient and faster, but for some reason it just still feels slow. So while I have a functioning Nextcloud server, it's just not as optimized as I would like it to be. So let's get into talking about KDE Plasma 6.0. I do want to touch that briefly because I want to take it a different direction, but for the sake of new users, especially users that are new to systems like Arch Linux, the rolling release distributions that get the updates as soon as they become available. If you are new to this kind of distribution, you might be caught off guard if you use KDE Plasma. This past week, it updated to 6.0, and if you updated unknowingly, unprepared for what that would bring, you might be a little confused right now, because upon updating to 6.0, odds are it broke all of your widgets, it broke your scripts, and your desktop environment just is not functioning the way that you had it configured for 5.0 versions. And the reason that is because upon a rolling release distribution getting the update for KDE Plasma 6.0, it automatically distributes that to its users. Therefore, you update to 6.0 prior to all of your widgets developers updating, your widgets, your plugins, and your scripts for use with 6.0. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. You're going to be able to use 6.0 with all of your favorite widgets and scripts and plugins, but you're going to have to wait for each of those developers to update those things if they intend on updating them for use with 6.0. That's just the nature of the beast. That's the nature of being the bleeding edge, is that everyone has to be on the same page. And if not everybody's on the same page, then some things are not going to work anymore. A prime example is I've been using KDE Plasma for a very long time. You guys have seen it in previous videos. I had an aesthetic clock widget as well as a to-do list, and sometimes I would use a sticky note widget as well. These are KDE Plasma widgets. And upon updating to 6.0, each and every single one of them was broken. I could not use it at all. I literally just had to remove them from my desktop because they were useless until they get updated, or I update them myself. They're useless, and I don't have the time to update them myself. Therefore, I have to abandon them until they get updated for use with 6.0. And again, that's if they get updated for 6.0. Sometimes you end up in a situation where developers like, I am too busy for this, or I don't have time for this, or I have no desire for this. Therefore, the widget, the plugin, or the script then becomes depreciated. And unless someone decides to pick up the project and fork it so that it can continue to be used, you're pretty much just going to have to do without. So that kind of hopefully explains to new users the experience that you might be having regarding KDE Plasma on a rolling distro since the 6.0 update. All right, so now that we've discussed the update to KDE Plasma 6.0 and some of the things that you may be facing as a new user, hopefully that clarifies. If you have any questions, concerns, or comments, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. I do my best to respond to every single comment that I get, so if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. That being said, I am not the kind of individual that has the time to spare either fixing plugins or updating plugins in regards to a desktop environment, so it pushed me in a direction that I have been procrastinating for the past couple years, and that I have always wanted to learn how to use a window manager. In particular, a tiling window manager. And if you use Linux, you might already see that I am using i3 window manager. Very popular. You've got i3, you've got Awesome, and so on and so forth. But after discussing things with ChatGTP, my use case, and the way that I intend to use my computer, it said, i3 sounds like it's probably the best bet for what I would like to do. So that's what I dived into, and that's what I've been up to the past roughly 3 days. Since my KDE Plasma environment broke with the 6.0 update, I decided, you know what, now's the time. I'm just going to do a fresh installation, start from scratch. I'm going to install i3 Window Manager, and I'm just going to dive in. I'm going to learn how to use it. It's been quite a process, especially when it comes to not only configuring SDDM or simple display. I can't remember what it's called. It's SDDM. for the login manager, not only configuring it to use my custom backgrounds and all of that stuff, but configuring my windows, configuring my aesthetics, getting my shadows, my transparencies, learning to do all of this stuff to make my desktop environment with i3 window manager look and feel the way that I want it to look and feel. I've still got a lot of things that I need to do. Like, I did figure out how to get my icons and my mouse icon and all of that stuff changed. So for the most part, my desktop environment feels like I would like it to feel. I'm still learning a lot of my keybinds. I'm still missing and mixing up a lot of my keybinds. So establishing a new workflow with the use of a window manager versus a desktop environment like KDE Plasma has had a bit of a learning curve, but so far I've really been enjoying it. As of today, it's been the first day that I've been messing with i3's floating windows. It's been interesting. I really like the idea that of the floating windows, but in terms of how they work and how to move them and resize them, it's going to take me a little while to do it fluidly. For now, I've just been trying to dive into my configuration and get things set up. I've got, different keybinds for switching workspaces, getting my gaps in there. I've been using PCOM, I believe it is, using PCOM to deploy like transparency effects and rounded corners and so on and so forth. It's been quite a journey. I'm not to a point where I can really elaborate on these configurations in an instructive manner. So I'm just going to kind of talk about what it's been like for me. And one of the big things is, like, there are so many different key bindings and configurations for different functions in i3 that I have consistently run into issues where I might configure a key binding only to find out that it's already been set somewhere else. So then I have a conflict in key binds, due to duplicate key binds. That's probably been the most prominent issue, is making sure that all of the keybinds are reflective of what I find useful without conflicting with each other. Also learning the functionalities, like being able to, when you use a window manager like i3, essentially you can get rid of using your mouse. And that's something that I've had a hard time weaning myself off of. I do see how efficient it is to use a window manager and not need a mouse like this to click on everything. Like, I shouldn't have to click up here to switch my workspace. There's actually a key binding for that. But memorizing all of those key binds so that you can do it on the fly, it's going to take me some time. So you're just going to have to bear with me while I am still dependent on my mouse for certain applications on the environment. That being said, I really like the window manager. i3 has been really fun to work with. It's been really fun to learn, learning to resize and configure things to my liking and navigate the desktop environment. I still need to learn how to configure i3 so that certain applications open on certain certain displays. For example, my code here, VS Code, I want to configure it so that whenever I open VS Code, it actually opens up on my vertical menu to the right of this screen that you see here. That way I've got the vertical real estate to work and sift through code. It just makes it so much easier to find what you're looking for when you have vertical real estate. So those are some features that I still have to learn how to configure, but once I get that, everything will be fine and dandy. In regards to gaming, I did get Steam installed, and so far it's been fine. It's been fine. I did run into an issue with, I don't have Steam open right now, otherwise I would show you. I was having issues with Forza Horizon 5 or whatever it is. It's a new game that I recently purchased on sale. It is silver rated for Linux, but it seemed to work right out the box. It launched no problem. It does give me an error when it first launches, and then it says, it can't detect whatever. Once you ignore that, it launches the game. The strange thing is it opens one full black screen, but then it opens the game in its other window. So I'm not sure what that's about, but once I learned how to configure it so that the game launched on my primary monitor instead of just picking whatever monitor it thought it was best to launch on, in this case, it kept launching on my big screen TV, which is great. That's typically where I play my games anyway, but for the sake of configuring and learning to set up the i3 window manager, I wanted to learn how to make it launch on this primary screen that you guys are looking at. And I did finally figure that out. So From my experience, despite a couple hiccups here and there in regards to which monitor the game launches on, the gaming experience with i3 has been just like anything else, which is to be expected. As long as you got Proton and all your dependencies installed in order to display, you know, your games and execute them, everything is fine. So the gaming experience has been great. The workflow experience has been great. I can't wait to become proficient in use of i3 Window Manager. Eventually, I would like to learn how to use Awesome as well, but you know, one task at a time. So that's my update, guys. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to drop them down below. I do my best to respond to every single comment. Hope you find something useful. If you are one of those new users that happen to use a rolling distribution like Arch Linux, and you use KDE Plasma and you find that you're having trouble since the 6.0 update, please don't hesitate to ask your questions below. I will respond, and I will do my best to help you in any way that I can. So that being said, I will catch you guys in the next video. With any luck, I'll have learned far more regarding my i3 Window Manager and navigating and configuring. And once I get to a certain point, I will definitely release a tutorial on how to configure i3 Window Manager for use as a desktop environment. All right, we'll catch y'all later.